Today, in the media conference with and consists primarily of finding and sharing great information in a way that attracts and retains. Thought leadership is when a leader's thoughts are being used by leaders to lead others. Thought leadership is influencing a narrative by understanding what needs to be done. Thought leadership is the expression of ideas that demonstrate you have expertise in a particular field, area, or topic. A thought leader can be recognized as an authority in a specific field and whose expertise is sought and often rewarded. That can be an expert, a historical figure, or a wise person with worldly impact. Many strive to become a thought leader in their respective fields. It takes dedication, patience, strategy, and education. In this series, we will be asking straight questions, and we expect a straight answer from our thought leader. And today, our thought leader is Dr. Ravi Kumar Jain. Welcome, Dr. Ravi Kumar Jain, on our show. And our today's topic is Indian Knowledge System. Dr. Ravi Kumar Jain is the director of Symbiosis Institute of Business Management, Hyderabad campus, Hyderabad. Dr. Jain is a passionate institution builder and a startup evangelist and a mentor at T-Hub, playing a proactive role in building India's startup ecosystem. Earlier, he was the founding director and associate dean at Symbiosis Center for Research and Innovation at SIU, Pune. He has been conferred with several awards, including Best Business School Director by Higher Education Forum 2021, by ISDSI in 2018, and Distinguished Services 2019 by Asia Pacific DSI. Welcome, Dr. Ravi Kumar Jain, on our show. Dr. Jain, as you know, that today's topic is Indian Knowledge System, and it's a thought leadership series in which I am going to ask a straight question to you, and I expect straight answers from you. So I am starting with a first question. What is Indian Knowledge System, Dr. Jain?
Namaskar. Good morning to all the viewers of this series and a fantastic network of media and online channels that Dr. Goel has created. And I'm really happy to be part of this series. And I'm afraid, going by the definition that Dr. Goel has said about thought leaders, I don't know if I deserve all of it, but I'll try my with my limited knowledge and experience, I'll try to answer his straight questions with perhaps straight answers. Thanks once again for making me part of this. Coming to the idea of Indian knowledge system, let me share the background is why suddenly, why of late we're talking about Indian knowledge system in Indian context and also in global context. If you recall, in 2018, there was a special committee formed under the chairmanship of Professor Bhimrao Maitri, then director of IIM Tirchi. He made an interesting inclusion while developing a model curriculum for management. He has included one segment saying management knowledge and management gyan from the Indian literature. At that time, it was predominantly referred to from a few texts which are always on the top of our mind, like some Vedic references and so on, or maybe Artha Shastra and so on. Now that has started one interesting conversations across the country. Ki there is enough of literature which can be harnessed and can be included as a part of our education system to strengthen it and bring the lost knowledge base or the treasure trove of Indian knowledge, which is encapsulated in text, stories. They call it as shastras and kavyas. Some scientific texts as well as some imaginative compositions. All these need to be brought out, and the distilled knowledge which it provides should be included, should be incorporated into the modern education system for it to be more meaningful and more impactful. Now, coming to the idea of Indian knowledge systems, Indian knowledge system as a orientation, it starts from individual development to global well-being. It is people-oriented and principle-based. Two distinctions it has from when compared to the current or modern knowledge systems or the modern education system, which is run on the scientific inquiry. The modern scientific inquiry it is contextual, or rather the modern education is contextual, while the Indian knowledge system is context agnostic. Means it fits into any context across the time. So two distinctions are: it is timeless and context agnostic, and principle based rather than empirical based. Now this is the basic idea of Indian knowledge system. Now this is there as a part of our tradition, culture, practices at home, and our societal learning systems that we all have developed in micro capsules, whether it is in culturally rooted practices, or how we eat, how we conduct with talk to people, how we transact with society. In three terms they say vichar, vyavahar and vyapar. In all three aspects, this literature or this knowledge system is embedded. It has to be formalized and encapsulated. One aspect of it, it can be traced in the very cultural rooting and our ethos, where we find in India very high on entrepreneurship, high on savings and conservatism as a cultural rooting, high on relationship building and relationship management, high on trust, and high on empathy, which is reflected in our hospitality, the axioms of Atithi Devo Bhava and so on. Now, all these are culturally rooted in every aspect or every subcultures that are prevailing in the current territorial India. Earlier Bharatavash was much bigger, and it would stretch from the German borders to the Pan Asia up to Philippines and Pan Asia region. But then these aspects which are culturally reflected is a distillation, a distilled knowledge that we have had in our cultures. Now this has to be now formalized, is the idea of IKS, that is Indian knowledge systems. And thankfully, government for the last 2-3 years have been insisting or putting a great effort, and encouraging a lot of universities, intellectuals, and also societies to come up with their contribution in bringing forth the Indian knowledge system in every domain, from scientific, or say astronomy, astrology, to even culinary arts. These are my opening.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jain, for explaining what is Indian knowledge system. Now, you have mentioned that one committee was formed, or Dr. Mehri has mentioned. Ministry of Education at AICT New Delhi formed a established cell to promote interdisciplinary research on all aspects of Indian knowledge system, preserve and disseminate IKS for further research and societal application. It will actively engage for spreading the rich heritage of our country and traditional knowledge in the field of arts and literature, agriculture, basic science, engineering and technology, architecture, management, economics, etc. Whether any work in this field done by government, appointed cell?
A lot of efforts are, happening. Have been put up. Some high power committees are also, operating on it. I see a few agencies working more actively in both scientific field, that is in engineering and various branches of science. Especially IIT Kharagpur is leading that. IIT Kanpur is doing some good work on it. And in management literature, IIM Bangalore is doing a good job, especially Professor Mahadevan has been working along with a few other scholars of Sanskrit and who understands management, and management practitioners who understand Sanskrit as a language. They are bringing out very interesting work, some compilation of slokas and what do you call modules developed from Indian scriptures, mapping with the modern concept. So things are happening. In fact, at Symbiosis, I take pride in saying that we have started, we have constituted a high power committee. Fortunately, I'm also part of that committee to set up an Indian knowledge system center at Symbiosis with a focus on bringing in cultural aspects, language aspects, and also the knowledge aspects to the fore. So a lot of work to be done, but at least good news is we have started. We have taken the first step towards that, and government is funding it. They are very positive. They are receiving the ideas. When we go with proposals and ideas, they are listening to it, and they are also forthcoming to fund it. I think that's a positive move to start with. And
Okay.
it's a long journey. It may take even decades before we could actually bring at least the surface part of, clean up the surface part of it. Going in depth is going to take a lot of time.
Yes, we have to remove all the dust, which as they are already, otherwise this is our culture, and so much we were leading at one time in our knowledge, and today
it has been dormant.
yes,
The Advaita tradition that developed, it is between 1000 BC to up to 6000 AD, 600 AD. 1600 years it was including in language of Sanskrit was prevalent as a they call common language, and a lot of that literature after that we have started losing it generation after generation.
Yes. Now my question to you is, why Indian knowledge system is important?
It is important because the very root, or the very I would say orientation itself is different. It leads, or it takes people, or the journey starts from vocation to liberation. While the Western knowledge system, I'm sorry, let me make a disclaimer here that whenever we are comparing, we are not trying to belittle the existing system or the Western system, so-called Western system. It has been doing good for the last few hundred years. But then, just to put things in perspective, I draw some comparative statements. However, we have to ensure that there is a coexistence, and we bring the old wisdom, or the nectar of Indian knowledge system, and combine it with the modern scientific approach to bring the best of both worlds. Coming to the point, 𝐂𝐀𝐑𝐔 is important because they say for the liberation of individual and welfare of the world. The very structure of Indian knowledge system is suitable for that. While the Western constructs talk about knowledge as source of power, and source of power, power as in power to dominate in the society, or societal dominance. Whereas the Indian knowledge system talks about liberation and contribution to society. Now that's where the difference comes in, and hence you say for the welfare of the society, for the welfare of the world, Indian knowledge systems are going to contribute more. Just let me give an example. If you look at the Varna system and the ashramas that is prescribed, individual goes through, or individual life is divided into four ashramas. Four ashramas. Starts with brahmacharya as a student, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa. And in each stage, what is to be learned, that is skill, competencies, and vocation based on the varna, classification by work, nature of vocation you pick up, or individual picks up, or competencies one develop. Now they say you move from brahmacharya to sannyasa, these four stages. At every stage, the level of competency, knowledge, and skills that you gain should lead you from the personal materialistic requirement, from desire, that is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Now this mapping is very well, put in a fabric which is very cohesive. It says at sannyasa, these are the prescriptions. As an individual, your contribution to society, your contribution to global well-being should be looked at. And a lifelong learning continuum is also prescribed, which no other knowledge system in the world, I'm so sorry, which no other known knowledge system in the world gives you such a structured construct of learning and knowledge dissemination and knowledge creation and knowledge application.
Okay. Now you have mentioned about Varna system. In India, Varna system was very much there. Do you believe that we should again go back to the Varna system, like what we have, we call the four Varnas which are prevailing, or not? And you have mentioned that it is with the type of work they are doing. So Varna system through the work. So you mean to say the service class will be called Shudra, the business class will call Vaishya, and those are in army and the police, they will be Varya, there's Kshatriya, and those who are professors or imparting knowledge will be Brahmins. You mean to say this, or what is your idea about the Indian knowledge system, what it says about the world?
See, unfortunately, this Varna system has got linked with the religious construct and religious narrative, and hence it has been loathed for a long time. And we are given to understand that Varna system is the root cause of all the societal inequities. I'm not getting into that side. Varna system, by its definition, it says what kind of skills and competencies you learn, you gain, you practice, you belong to that clan. Now, what happens is, naturally, see, if my father is a goldsmith, the skill that I learn at home through my community of goldsmiths is something which I gain as a competency at a very young age. And naturally, I will be inclined to go towards that. It is not sacrosanct a goldsmith's child or a person born in goldsmith house will become goldsmith. We have seen exceptions where we have seen people exploring their life and going into different directions for their pursuit of knowledge and language skills. So Varna system by definition is good, because even today in modern structure we all have this Varna system. No, we have, I mean, division of labor, we call it. We don't call it as Varna, a very silosized structure, but there is a structure which says, okay, if you are engineered, if you are trained in certain skills, you are called engineer. If you are trained in certain other discipline, you are called architect, and so on. So we still have that definition that helps us in organizing this society in a better manner, right? So when I said this whole continuum, you have varnas, then you have ashramas, then you have different stages of learning. Okay, let me put it simple. Again, the learning, if you look at the what to be learned at different stages of life or different ages, you say at primary level, at a young age, when you are around 7 to 10 or 12 years, you should be focusing, or you are this is system to teach you on the character building. The focus should be on character building. Where does it come from? It comes from the family and society. The family in which you live, the society in which you live, and the systems and values that are prescribed, ascribed, and hammered into your mind on day in and day out by way of practices and traditions, right? So that is your grounding of character building. After that, you get into something called competency building at a higher secondary. When you are from between 12 to 18, you develop competencies. Now, which competency interests you? You gain that. Where you are naturally inclined, you gain that. That system was very much prescribed in the Varna system, and also the way the education system was organized and structured at that time, right? And the third is when you go to a level of university. Now today, universities actually are expected to do, train people on skills and job-oriented courses and programs. The earlier, the very definition it says Savidyaya Vimuktaye. No, your gyan is to liberate you. Now we have reduced it to Savidyaya Niyuktaye. For your next appointment or your first job and so on. So at higher education level, it should be capacity building. So you have character building, competency building, and capacity building at 3 levels of pursuits of gyan or knowledge at different ages of life, and the orientation at different ashramas of stages of life, and different competencies, that is varnas of life. I think I am looking at Varna from that division of labor for better societal, but organize the society in a better way.
Okay, Dr. Jain, you mentioned just now the education system, and you say that in the first year they have to be character building, then competence building, then liberation education. Recently, like in July 2020, we have come out with the National Education Policy 2020. And in that, it is allowed now that one can choose what sort of topic or subject they want to study, including somebody wants for dances or music, and they can also take some mainstream like biology or chemistry, etc., which was not allowed earlier, or still I don't know whether it's allowed or not, but after the implementation of NEP 2020, it is allowed. Now, when this NEP has come, has it incorporated the Indian knowledge system in that or not?
Yeah, it is very much there as a core part of NEP 2020. In fact, the very structure of your 10 plus 2 plus 2 structure, they talk about learning or building competences at an early stage. So when you graduate to university level education, your focus is on aiming excellence in a specific field, not just competency. Your competency building should happen at the much earlier stage.
No, but Dr. Jain, you just mentioned that Indian knowledge means system means that you have to liberate after acquiring your knowledge. But here the NEP means that what NEP emphasizes to train a person in skill so that he can be trained, he can start working at any stage, whether he will complete the degree or a certificate or a diploma, whatsoever. So the concept is same, but it is not in alliance with the Indian knowledge system.
NEP in fact prescribes a lifelong learning concept, and that's the reason they said this multiple entry and exit. Wherever you want to exit and come back later, you can certainly come back and do the needful, as long as your skill sets or competencies are mapped of the requirement of the given time and age when you come back. But it does prescribe a continuous lifelong learning where you keep upgrading your knowledge, you keep upgrading your competencies, and then move towards. It is your choice whether you get stuck between artha and kama. You have, again, the continuum starts with dharma to moksha. When you say moksha, it is liberation. So your education system should start from righteousness, teach you the righteousness, make you a responsible citizen, to work on certain things which gives you material possessions and also help you satisfy your desires, and finally move towards liberation. Now, often we have seen that we get stuck in artha and kama. We don't move towards, moksha. But yes, the path is laid. It is for us, or individual, to tread on the path where to stop. Now, if you choose to stop at artha and kama, it's your choice.
But yes,
go towards liberation, but the path is laid.
Yes, Dr. Jain, you mentioned initially about the character building. Now, today, what we are seeing, the present education system, nobody talks about character. Nobody is interested in moral. They all are interested how fast they will acquire the degree or diploma and get the good fat package. They are not interested about, and no one is emphasizing. Or in other words, do you mean to say that the Indian knowledge system, we will go back to the Gurukul system of education instead of the present education system where one-to-one education or very few are living along with the Guru and they are imparting the knowledge as well as the character building, competence, everything. You mean to say the Indian knowledge system wants us to go back to the Gurukul system?
The good news is the current technology and the fast evolving digitalization does provide us this benefit of coming up with something called personalized education, personalized learning methods, and personalized evaluation methods. In fact, the day before yesterday, when our finance minister was reading out the budget, there is a provision for digital university, which is going to lay the path for personalized education at any time, anywhere. You choose at your doorsteps, you have access to. Now, coming, to this whole idea of character building, as I said, Indian knowledge system structurally, what it was hundreds of years ago, it is structured in that manner. Now, right now, we are not in that format. So we have to perhaps move in that direction. The good news is the schooling system still amenable. And as I said, Indian, the culture which is rooted in our day-to-day practices does teach us the moral grounding and the cultural rooting. Ajbi, the best teachers for us at younger age are our mothers and gurus, and whether you go to a mosque or a temple or religious place and all, these are the epicenter of character building by way of pravachana, by way of kavya part, by way of stories, by way of symbols. The entire ethical grounding or moral compass is built based on these stories, folklores. You have these symbols and scriptures and characters, right? Every time, in every culture, in every script, you have characters which are always taught about. Ki iske jaise bano, uske jaise bano. When you talk about individual righteousness, the greatest example people keep giving is Ram, Bhagwan Ram. Likewise, in every culture, subcultures, there are certain characters which are often used by parents, our communities, or religious congregations. So character building mostly happens in that at a very young age. Our current schooling system, which is rooted again in the Western constructs, unfortunately, this has started only 200 years ago. And if you look at the timeline, this is just a blink of an eye, right? However, the distortion has happened for over a few generations, and it is very difficult to reimagine. But there is a need to reimagine, and there is a possibility to do it. Technology will enable to get us there. So more stories to be brought out in that fashion. As I said in my initial remarks, even today, Indian society or the eastern part of the globe, eastern communities, you will find a higher propensity of showing more respect for relationship, more trust, more hospitality, more conservatism, more responsibility at an aggregate level. We are deteriorating because naturally life moves from order to disorder. It calls it social entropy. But that can be prevented by these knowledge interventions or education interventions. So my short answer would be yes, we need to move towards personalized learning, and for ethical grounding or for the character building, we have to work at a very early age, very early age.
Yeah, Dr. Jain, you mentioned about the very early age. Unfortunate part in India is that we are concentrating on a higher education. I can very well see behind you such a beautiful building of your campus. How many such type of campus for primary education in India, where the basically, as we all know, the morals or ethics, until unless it will not go to a child at a very early age, as you had mentioned, it's very difficult to change his or her perceptions in future. You cannot put moral at this age when you are teaching in higher education institutions. It has to be done. Do you think, and it was there in our earlier, as you mentioned, a guru in Gurukul system, it was basically not to teach only the skills, but also to make the character at that time. Do you think it is a time when we must emphasize on a very good quality primary schools in India, so that the good foundation, ethical as well as moral, to be laid down for the students? So when they reach to your institutions, higher education institution, then you will have no such type of problems what we are facing today, a moral crisis, I can say, in India. What is your view about that?
I fully agree with you on that. But as I said, the current schooling system is something which we have inherited and shaped up only in the last 200 years. And I'll tell you, despite this distortion, where especially in Indian context, the education system, or the so-called structured education system, was developed to produce clerks for the then rulers. I mean, who ruled India for a long time. They wanted administrators, and they wanted people to think or become English by spirit and their mannerisms. They may look like Indian, famous Macaulay's statement saying that we want to convert all these guys into Englishmen by thought, though they may appear like Indians in their color and clothing. I think from there, what is being brought today is we still there. I mean, in a sense, the distortion has only worsened. Having said that, the good part is, as I said, the distilled knowledge is very much there, is well connected in the community practices, social practices, our day-to-day activities, our day-to-day, conversations. That kept us strong enough in retaining our value system and ethics and morals and all that. Indian, I would say, the ethical or moral compass, or the character construct, is still seen very strong globally, when compared to the distortions that have happened to the Western societies, where it is completely individualistic and hedonistic way of nurturing. Even individuals are nurtured for competition and care for nothing, including no care for the world. Whereas we have been rooting ourselves, you care for everything. When you take care of yourself, you also ensure that you don't disturb the harmony of the others, or the balance of the ecosystem. Having said that, no doubt there is a deterioration, and the good news again is, now is the time we started thinking about it. Dr. Goel, tell me, 10 years or 20 years ago, the conversations were what? Conversations were what more can be produced, how well we can exploit the natural resources which are gifted to us. It is as if, our entitlement to exploit to the best for ourselves, and how we can be more competitive and so on. Today we are moving from ruthless competition to reasonable cooperation, to proper collaboration and so on. And we are also now conscious about, thanks to Corona and the pandemic, it has given a reality check for all of us, including that of the academicians and researchers and policymakers, that we need to start again, going back to roots and see where did we go wrong and where are we heading. In the name of progress, are we really moving in the right direction? And that's where, again, the Indian knowledge systems come into play and will help us give the right compass, the right direction, in terms of, again, 3 dimensions of knowledge creation, knowledge dissemination, and knowledge application.
Dr. Jain, you mentioned about that we have still the eastern part of the globe is still having more morals or very closely knit society. But my personal views, and I want your comment on that, is that what we have, this Indian knowledge system, has been borrowed or taken by the European or Western culture. Because even if we see the morals there, they respect the women. They never, the corruption is very less. They are not as much polluting as we are, as you said, the natural resources. Don't you think that we are losing our own tradition and culture, and the other societies, the so-called Western societies, are adopting? Today, what we have in India, we have seen the moral breakdown, moral crisis in India, while in other countries, you can move freely in the night. Their respect is there. Yes, some customs are different. That is a different thing about their dresses, about their eating habits, etc. But still, the way they respect is not there. And the knowledge wise, if to be very frank, the other day I had a discussion about the India, the global educational hub. But the crisis is that whatsoever we have good brains, it's not that our education system is bad. We have a very good education system. But whatsoever those who are passing from these universities, they are going abroad and they are doing very good there. All the patent which our universities are registering, or the companies who are sponsoring, they are getting the royalty, not our Indians. But in India, even those traditional, which you say we are so rich, why it is not been here? We have not kept and others have taken from us. They have stolen our own culture. What do you say about it?
I am afraid we will get into a different dimension of this debate, in the sense, while we are forgetting, or rather we are adopting something which is visibly more appealing for us. In the last 3 decades, in fact, we have grown, or rather we have deteriorated in several counts in the last 3 decades when compared to what Indian society was like 3 decades ago. So there are a lot of aspects of scientific development, more comfort in life, and so on and so forth. So some good reflections and some good visible, development, so-called development that we have witnessed. But there is a lot of things that we have lost in the process. In fact, okay, let me put it this way: what the Western society in the industrial era, what they have gone through, perhaps we are going through it now. They had the same thing, where the family structure was crumbling from joint families. They started becoming nuclear families, and then their food habits started changing, and in fact deteriorating. Their their moral compass and everything was on a decline. And suddenly, when they got in touch with the Indian way, or the Eastern philosophies and all, they said, "Hey, this looks better because we have gone through the pains of not having these." And people started adopting at a more of a Platonic level, in the sense more at a cultural family level or social construct level. Scientific inquiry, if you look at, from Adam Smith's Wealth of Nation to Carl Sagan theory of your cosmic theories and all, almost all of them, I'm sorry, there is a power.
Yes.
Almost all of them have referred to Indian knowledge system, saying that when we referred, we realized that there is a rich treasure trove there, and much can be adopted from there. In fact, a famous statement by astrophysicist, it is Heisenberg, I think, who gave that theory of alternate world, or he did a lot of work on the quantum mechanics or quantum physics. Now he referred, saying that when we looked into the Indian text, when I got into when I started understanding the Indian text or Indian literature, things which appeared to be absurd or crazy from the quantum perspective started making sense. Same is the case with Carl Sagan's guru, who said that the precision of certain numerical definitions or numerical expressions of certain cosmic phenomena is so precise in Indian literature that we never knew. So such acknowledgement by scientific community has been there for a few hundreds of years, but at the societal level, the disconnect started. See, earlier, again, in Indian knowledge systems, it was well integrated. The scientific community and the social or the society was well connected. The Gyan was translated from a scientific text called Sutras to Kavyas, expressed more in terms of stories and more in terms of poems and so on and so forth, right? Where the distilled knowledge in terms of principles and prescriptions and suggestions and traditions were translated, were transferred to the society, and society would absorb them and practice them. This would happen through different types of people. You have scientific, researchers who would be actually doing research in their labs, and they may not be actually interacting with the community. But then there are drashtas, there are gurus who would actually experience that, come back to society by way of pravachana, by way of we call it as tarka. They engaged with the society where they allowed people to argue, disagree, agree, and engage in conversations. Now that disconnect has diluted, and this has happened. I mean, today as we stand, we don't have any silver bullet solution to make a difference as at a wing or at a snap. But yes, we have realized that what we have lost was more dearer than what we have gained. What Western communities what we have gained from aping Western communities perhaps is not sufficient, and it calls for more. And what they have adopted from us, and they are now discovering the so-called knowledge treasure, we should also start looking at it. Now, mobility and connectivity has helped us realize these things much earlier than the damage would have already done. Yes, the damage is done, but we still have time to recover, and we can do from here on. If we start, these conversations should increase, the frequency of such conversations should increase, the scope and scale of such conversations should increase. That's when the people will start asking for it, questioning for it, and exploring for it. And we need a handful of scientific, inquisitive community to build, say, 1,000 people in each discipline, digging into the older texts. This is my view. Western societies, especially Germany and the US, they are doing in-depth study, or in-depth, I would say, research on Indian texts. I mean, there are 7 German universities, I understand, who study almost all Indian scriptures, starting from Vedas to Agams of, the Jaina Parampara. There are Agams. Very interesting scientific descriptions of certain physical, certain cosmic phenomena is also explained there. These are being studied and researched in German universities.
So you agree that in what India is forgotten, they have adopted. Thank you very much, Dr. Jain. Now my question goes to you: is how many main ancient Indian knowledge systems are there?
No, if you divide the literature, it is basically into two segments in terms of their orientation. Literature can be called as Vanmaya. And then you have Shastras, which are more technical descriptions, and Kavyas, which are more imaginative. This thing in Shastras, again, you have this. They call it as Apaurusha and Paurusha, where attributed to none, which are Vedas, like universal prescriptions, universal knowledge. You have 4 Vedas and Vedagnas, which define some of the aspects. And then you have Paurushas, which are linked to certain characters, certain timelines, and who said it. They are not contingent on, while Apurushas are not contingent on who said it. They are timeless principles or Vedic literature. So Vedas, Upanishads, and all that form in that category. Whereas in the Paurushas, we talk about, it starts from, say, Itihasas and Puranas to philosophy. Anvikshiki, gives about logic. Mimamsa talks about analysis and interpretation. Dharma Shastra talking about sociology, and Kavya Vidya, and so on and so forth. So this is branching of Shastra. So this is more of scientific. Kavya is where the Shastras are translated for social consumption, societal consumption. Now this is my understanding. Then you have you have again certain branches there in which aspect you are taking. For example, for how individual should look at his knowledge pursuit, self, and for society, for the country, and for the world. Now you have a fantastic collection of slokas and prescriptions in Tirukural in Tamil Nadu. Kural means slokas basically. So 1333 kurals are given, which prescribes or suggests how one should learn things. So that is one system in itself. Then you have Jaina Agams, which again tells you how you should, talk about Gyan and Vigyan. That is, a pure knowledge and something which is more sensory, which is more visible. Likewise, you have Vedic knowledge. So this branching is there, but they all come from the same root. Or if you want to call it as Varmayas, that is the literature, the larger Indian knowledge treasure trove.
Okay. Now, when we are talking of modern time, and so my question to you is, what is the importance of modern science in Indian knowledge system?
No, it is very important in the sense it has collectively furthered the scientific inquiry of exploring certain aspects and certain phenomena, both physical and mental and universal. So no doubt that gives us a very, very strong reference point. And as I said, Indian knowledge system brings in a comprehensive a package of from individual to society to the global. If we combine these two, we'll have best of both worlds, because the modern scientific inquiry starts and ends with self and prescribe that as a source of power, whereas the Indian knowledge system, as I suggested earlier, starts with self but graduates to the globe, where it talks about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam or Sarva Loka Hitaya, where it says welfare of world. Unless your knowledge is used for welfare of world, it is no knowledge. Right. So if you marry these two, that's where we get the best combo to make the world a better place and ensure that we deliver excellence and sustainable organizations and excellence and sustainable societies and individuals. So modern science is very much important. We cannot, this cannot be this versus that. It is not Indian knowledge system versus the modern science. It is this and that.
So you mean to say both are complementing each other?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, again, I am coming to the point when I mentioned earlier that Indian knowledge system is being taken away from India. Is there any way to protect Indian knowledge system? Because we are seeing how our own traditional things have been patented abroad. A small example of turmeric, all those things, how, and government has tried. We have got some thing where we have objected and we got this thing. So Indian knowledge system, which is our own system, is not been, as my earlier question was, is not being exploited or used by us now. Other countries are using and they are taking advantage of it. What do you say about it?
I don't know if that can be prevented or stopped unless we start learning and reviving it and marketing it better. The other day there was a very funny social media post on I think Twitter or Facebook, where it says the cardio rhythmic breathing helps you in calming down and better stress management. So they started calling pranayam as cardio rhythmic breathing. Right. Likewise, you call meditation as mindfulness and so on and so forth. So this is how you market, the way you understand it and all. So Western, I would say, society or Western style of packaging it and marketing it is much better than ours. We don't have any, we should not have any qualms in accepting that. And unfortunately, maybe, we as a community, as a Indian community as a whole, we suffer with a huge problem of self-loathing or low self-esteem. We assess ourselves less, we respect ourselves less, we respect our past less, we respect our parents less, in the sense, the tradition less. So when you don't respect yourself, obviously someone else takes advantage of that. I mean, it's as simple as that in the market. So you can't prevent so-called taking away. It is not be taken away. They are pursuing. That means they are realizing that there is a value in it, and then they are pursuing it. They are putting in efforts and all. So we should also start realizing it. Hey, there must be something good. And if we do that, the likelihood of we succeeding faster is more, because it is already rooted there. So you have to only kind of bring it to the surface, nurture it, and grow it. So, I mean, again, it cannot be Western versus Eastern, you versus me, protecting or preventing them from using our so-called knowledge system. Knowledge system is universal, as it prescribes. Indian knowledge system actually prescribes it is global and universal in nature. But then, as a society, as a community, as a state, for us to be able to find our place with our own systems, we need to go back to the roots, learn, revive, revise, and come back.
You have made a very, very important point that we cannot stop spreading our traditional values, and we cannot protect that. Other countries are using their traditional knowledge as a soft power. Unfortunately, India is not using that, because we have so much knowledge system, our own culture, art, knowledge. Don't you think India should come forth and use as a soft power to spread the knowledge, what we have, traditional knowledge, to other countries? Like if you remember, at least in our childhood, we have seen how the USSR at that time spread their art and culture by selling very cheap calendars and diaries in India. So as a student, we used to purchase those things. And it was then the China. Now China is running about 7 universities in India, just using as a soft power. So when we have that much, although we are doing the program, rather few of our suggestions have been accepted by the government, which were given on the media conference. So I would like to know from you, what is your suggestions to the government that how they can use this Indian knowledge system as a soft power to spread our own art and culture in other countries, which is very, very important. As you said, we cannot protect this. Time is of communication and all those things. So when we cannot stop, why not we officially use it, this soft power in other countries?
I'm not very sure if I am, because this borders onto the geopolitical aspects and all. Knowledge has always been the source of power in the Western construct. Whereas, again, let me repeat myself, knowledge has been a source of liberation in Indian construct. Now, we can still make use of so-called, to become Vishwa Guru, we have to demonstrate that we are gurus. In the sense, we know what we know. See, unfortunately, I was just noting down some punchline to give at the end. It says, earlier, there was this tradition, your tradition versus my tradition. And there was a prescription saying that, what do you know if you know only your tradition? Now, we are in a situation where we don't even know our tradition fully. What we talk about is very tidbits and which is scattered and spread and very platonic in nature. So it has been reduced, that statement has been reduced to what do you know when you don't know your own tradition. So first is our journey should start from within. Unless we train ourselves, go back to roots, nurture, bring it, revive, we will not have anything to offer to the world. When you say, exerting a soft power by giving in or suggesting or making people do it, in a manner of speaking, we are successful in promoting yoga. But look at what happened. When the 190 countries or 178 countries have adopted it, we were making jokes at home about yoga, right? When somebody was talking about pranayama as a source of, useless management, people say, these guys, churan ki goli bech raha hai, right? While when somebody from, see, again, it's a huge aspect of multi-dimensional, multiple factors are there. But at policy level, as I said, the good news is the current dispensation is promoting and is inclined to promote, provided you demonstrate you have it. Right. So when our prime ministers go to visit other countries and he gifts Bhagavad Gita to them, what is he trying to do? He is obviously promoting the source of our inspiration. We draw solutions and inspiration from this book or from this particular text. It is useful for you. Perhaps you may find it useful. So it's a message. It's a signaling aspect which the policy at policy level they are doing it. Again, allocation wise, in terms of focus, in terms of accommodating, in terms of budgetary provisions and all, at policy level it is happening, but it should happen at academic level and at societal level. Unless we start taking pride in what we are, and before we take pride, we need to go back and learn, know our own roots before we talk about. Because many a times in conversations I have seen some of the researchers from US, a couple of guys from, I think, Georgia Tech University, and then one scholar who came from Austin campus of Texas University. They knew certain aspects much better, much clearer manner than we knew about our own selves, our own scripts, right? They would go and actually do the exploration. They would reach out to people, ask questions and make notes and so on, which we lack, unfortunately. So there has to be an initiative at every level, from individual to societal to academia and policy, to revive this. And when we do that, we'll be able to take pride in it. When we take pride in it, obviously we'll be able to promote it. And when we are able to promote it, obviously we are going to be there, present there, as you suggested.
Dr. Jain, as you know, nowadays, everyone wants to know, because of the change of the scenario, because of the research, everybody would like to know, see the research, what research has been done. Is it fact or a fiction? Whether Ramayana or Mahabharata is a fiction or a fact, or it has happened or not, whatsoever. My point to you is, are these types of researches are going on in the universities or not? If not, how we can talk about our own knowledge? As you rightly said, we have a half-cooked knowledge. We don't have the knowledge because we have not been told the benefit of this Indian knowledge system. Now, as I'm sure you are going to explain about the benefits of our Indian knowledge system, but these benefits of Indian knowledge system, unless it will be documented after doing the proper research, then only you can convince today's generation, the young generation, because they want to see, like if we see the COVID. Now, COVID, everyone is becoming a doctor. Everybody is saying the vaccine is good or not good. But when the research comes and some magazine like Lancet, if they publish something, people accept it. So unless our credibility even is not being shown, how we will be able to convince ourselves that Indian knowledge system is really beneficial, not at that time, but at the present time also? What do you say about this, Dr. Jain?
Scientific inquiry is a necessity. However, again, there are fundamental difference in the Western system, which is more, I would say, empirist, where empirical, evidence-based, right? And evidence-based has its own lacunas and own challenges of establishing truth. And truth, there are versions of truth at every different stage, in every different context. Whereas Indian knowledge system prescribes principle-based, which are universal, context agnostic and all. So whether we want to research and provide a so-called empirical validation to those principles, I'm not sure. It is, world has to, the research has to be driven in a proper direction to be able to establish that. But if we are trying to validate and say what is given to us is good, is better, and sell the idea in empirical sense, perhaps we will be missing a point there. So the research in terms of exploring the knowledge system has started, is there. I mean, it was there earlier also, but never, as I said, discussed or debated or got into conversations in Sanskrit universities and all in Kerala. And in fact, University of Mysore also holds the original text of Chalukya's time of Artha copy, or they say arguably the last copies of Arthashastra, after which it just got what you call invisible, or got lost in time, and it was discovered in early 1900s and all. Such inquiries at individual levels or small pockets has always been there, but as I said, a broadband approach or a broad-based approach has started, and dedicated centers of excellence have been established. In my initial remarks, I said some interesting initiative on promoting Sanskrit as a language has been taken up by IIT Kharagpur. In fact, they are talking about from linguistics started researching or talking about richness of the language or the inclusivity of language, where Sanskrit has more than 20 lakh or more than 2 million words, while the best of the language, Eastern languages has, maybe Korean has around 1 million words. But if you look at the languages which are widely used, Chinese or English, they are very, very poor in terms of their Shabdakosh, right? So, the journey has started. The journey started at the right place to understand the language, because the entire knowledge is encapsulated in that language. So unless you understand Sanskrit as a language, you won't be able to decipher what is there in the Indian text. So to answer your question straight, scientific inquiry has started in different pockets by centers of excellences sponsored by, promoted by, or encouraged by the government. IIT Kharagpur is one, and as I said, there are two universities. One is 𝐂𝐀𝐑𝐔 University, which is in the process of getting it is going to be set up very soon. Yoga University, Sanskrit University, university which is there in Tirupati also has a division of Sanskrit, which explores various texts. And likewise, there are some good centers of excellences in UP, which studies some of these texts like Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana and others, in-depth study in other Indian texts. So work is initiated. Is it sufficient? Obviously not. A long way to go, but a good step made in that direction, and we are making progress. The first step for which we have to be satisfied with is we started realizing the power of our own knowledge system. Now this step would be to explore and understand. So scientific inquiry has also started. More broad-based participation is required, suggested. I personally am invested in promoting this idea. So wherever I go, including that of this session, I agree to do is to talk about it and make people aware. Let us explore. Where do we reach is a different thing, but let us start the journey somewhere. Let us take the first step.
You are saying now we have heard the budget on first. Do you think this e-university, which they are digital universities, which they are bringing, are going to be based of the Indian knowledge system?
It will promote it in a big time, because they say digital university is going to provide you high definition digital content anytime, anywhere, accessible, affordable, at your doorsteps, this is the key point, in 18 different major Indian languages. Now that means you are promoting the local language, which brings in the richness of phonetics, linguistics, and all that, which will take us back to exploration. Otherwise, we were losing our languages. When you lose language, you lose entire culture, entire literature, entire history.
No, but Dr. Jain, like you, if 18 languages, do you think that in the science, I'm talking especially engineering or medical science, these books or the text can be translated in the different 18 languages? Is it possible now?
Yeah, that is what the efforts they are making in. And again, we have people there, we have technology at our disposal, which can make it happen. As I said, digitalization is a blessing in disguise for all of us, especially for India, because this has helped us to bring forth which was earlier not practicable and not affordable. So as a country also, we were not able to afford this kind of an exercise where the results were not known, and we were all chasing the so-called working knowledge, working language, which is English. Today, it is possible to learn and express yourself in local language, and you still end up achieving good.
Okay.
Platform.
Dr. Jain, earlier you mentioned about yoga. Now, you said that yoga is now adopted, and I can vouch that I 2 years back, before COVID, I was in Hawaii, and I was just going in the morning walk in the beach, and I found yoga class is going on, and all foreigners were enjoying yoga at that time. Now, the problem which is there in India, half-cooked knowledge of yoga. Everyone become yoga instructor without a proper training, and that's why the way the thrust our honorable Prime Minister has done, yoga day has been started celebrating all over the world. United Nations has adopted, but today still it has not gone in a big way as it should be, because there is no proper training of yogas in the universities or colleges. Don't you think, even if we cannot properly train the yoga teachers or instructors, just seeing on the YouTube, everyone become yoga teacher? Don't you think it is? Because if suppose I am having heart problem, or if I am suffering from cancer or any other disease, what type of yoga I should do? No, this yoga instructor doesn't know. They only know that you can do these steps. Do you think that for Indian knowledge system, until unless we will do it in a proper way, half-cooked knowledge will be more harmful than the what we are going to have? What are your views about this, Dr. Jain?
Yeah, I think you have given yoga. I would want to take that only as one example. This is the syndrome we are suffering, or perhaps we will have to address when we start developing the Indian knowledge system. The pitfalls, I mean, this was also discussed, and I recall one of my conversation in the conference that I was referring to a few years ago in Bangalore. Professor Mahadevan was, sharing his thoughts on what he's doing and what he's scared of, especially when people come and have a conversation on the knowledge system. He says, we don't have clarity as to what we are looking into. Second, ignorant teaching is more dangerous than no teaching. So you're half-cooked. When you said half-cooked, you actually end up, creating, inflicting more damage than good. Third aspect is too generic and sweeping statements, often not backed by sufficient homework. And many times, using the old knowledge to explain what is already practiced. It is like, glorifying the past. And it stops there. It starts with glorifying the past. Hamare purke bahut achhe the, badhiya the, knowledgeable the, and all. And it stops there. This mindless glorification of past should actually stop. Replication, random replication or random, without putting enough homework, if you are spreading it, we are doing damage. So there has to be proper structured mechanism, which some of the universities that I named, they are coming up with that kind of a structured knowledge system, where perhaps we will have more people who would train on different I would say, segments of yogic practices. Yoga, often when we say yoga, what you and I visualize, or most of us visualize, is those postures. So there are 20, 50, 40, 100 different postures, and if you master them, you are a yoga guru. No, yoga has a lot of dimensions to it. In fact, they say any act done with deep engagement is itself yoga. Karma yoga shu kausalam, they say. right? Yoga karma kausal. So, deep involvement itself is, a yogic way of looking at. So the definition and the whole idea of yoga has to be brought out. So it is not limited only to yoga. It is applicable to the entire spectrum of disciplines that Indian knowledge system has to offer. So there is a need to have a scientific approach, a structured approach, and a systematic approach to bring forth and then to propagate.
You have,
Is going to be damaging.
okay. You have mentioned other fields. Like we come to the medical field, and our Indian knowledge system. We know Ayurveda, and Ayurveda is at one time doctors practice Ayurveda and cure the disease. Today the condition is again half cooked. Why I'm saying is, we have seen during the COVID time there were two fraternity fighting with each other, Ayurveda fraternity versus the allopathy. How the Indian Medical Association has taken a tough stance against even the Ministry of Ayush, against the statements given by some of the so-called Ayurveda practitioners or teachers or whatnot. Again, in spite of all these things, what efforts we have taken to come out with the research on those Ayurveda things, so that we can convince. After all, today, if we are not convinced ourselves that whether this, we know one thing, our Indian knowledge system very clearly stated that if you are consuming this particular thing, suppose you are taking milk, you should not take this particular vegetable or this particular fruit. It was because of the traditional knowledge we were having, and still many of the households are adopting and practicing it. But the real reason they are not aware whether this is a calcium and this particular thing is a harmful thing. My point is, why the proper, although Ministry of Ayush is establishing Ayurveda colleges, as an educator yourself, you know what is the standard. My point of view is, again, I am asking you, as you are caring about the Indian knowledge system, why a proper Indian knowledge system is not being coming out, whether with one university or two universities or five universities, in a proper way, so that we can prove, it may take 5 years, 10 years, that this is the research, how the medical system can be used using our own traditional or Indian knowledge system in spite of following the Western system. What do you say about this, Dr. Jain?
I'm afraid I don't have necessary competencies to talk about the medical aspects as such, but general view about this conflict between different schools of thought or different approaches to healthcare and medication and pharmaceutical, whether it is allopathy, that is the Western modern medical science, or the naturopathy, or the Ayurveda, the other Unani is there, then you have homeopathy and so on. All of these have their own centers of excellences. There are structured bodies. There are universities which propagate, promote research and bring out knowledge in that area. We have Ayurveda universities. You have Ayurveda practitioners. You have naturopathy institutions and practitioners. The disagreements between these clans is a matter of their own survival, and then as Janta or public, we have to make a choice as to what we believe and how we respond to when we have ailments. Where do we go and where do we prefer to go? As a policy, at a policy level, I'm not very sure if they can take any stand against or for any specific approach or specific school of thought or way of doing things, or a specific medical system or healthcare system. They are nurturing all. So there are institutions which are sponsored or funded by government, which does in-depth research in Ayurveda. There are corporate houses which pump in a lot of money in homeopathy, right? Likewise, so that I'm not very sure if the debate of what to follow and what to prescribe and policy intervention of what to do, what is right. See, the Western or the so-called modern medical science talks about the empirical assessment. Now, again, we have the same flaws of empirical validation of medical, therapeutic capacity or efficacy of a medicine, of a new formula. has its own challenges. When you say evidence-based, how successful it is, how effective it is, and all we have seen, right? During COVID times, different pharmaceutical companies or different countries have claimed different things, and we got into a different spin of geopolitical, considerations of which country would consider whose vaccine as valid vaccine and so on. Now that takes us into a different again debate and dimension. Having said that, from the Indian knowledge systems perspective, we have a solid prescription from dietary prescription. They say Indian kitchen is a pharmacy basically. So you are what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat, what seasonal things should you eat, and all is extremely well prescribed, and they are very, very well preserved in traditional houses even today. Fine, one segment of India, because they are, in terms of adoption of Western culture and food habits and dietary habits, because of this labor force mobility has increased in the last few decades, that distortion has happened. But if you go to the dietary prescriptions, timing of diet and all, even now we have solid, suggestions, prescriptions, and systems to adopt. Who will adopt? How well one can adopt is all individual choice. For example, the fasting system prescribed in Jaina tradition, right? Now they call it as two meal, that is Biyasna, Ekasna, Upvas, Ayambil, and so on and so forth. So there is a fantastic prescription or a bouquet of dietary prescriptions as to you pick up as per your, Shakti Anushar, right? If you can't starve yourself, or you can't, your body doesn't support you to go for a complete upvas, which is actually a 36-hour fasting thing, you go for a kasna. If it doesn't support, your body doesn't support, you go for biyasna. Now there is an interesting study done by Japanese scientists on the efficacy of this entire prescription fasting model, and they came up with the idea of something called autophagy, which earned them Nobel Prize a few years ago. The root is in the fasting system that they are studied in the Jaina tradition. Likewise, in Hindu tradition also, they talk about fasting every week. Means, there are prescriptions which talks about how you remain healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually through proper intake of diet. So your kitchen is a pharmacy. It is loaded with all these so-called natural and Ayurvedic prescriptions, what spices to use, when to use, how much to use, and so on. So I think while we have India in a manner of speaking during COVID, Indians perhaps were protected because of that pharmacy rather than the other pharmacy.
Yes, you are right, 100%.
My claim, I may be wrong in that, but this
No, I think that plays a very, very important role, because we have the immunity, which is our traditional kitchen, and thanks goes to our mother, grandmothers, because of them we were saved. Now my one more question is, how does this Indian knowledge help us to live in a more sustainable way?
I think I will come to the last leg of some of the
Yes.
things I have noted down.
Yes.
Where how does it help? How does it help means, again, it operates at three levels, that is at individual level, societal and organization level, and at the universal level. Now, what we can do is to ensure that we ground ourselves in the knowledge systems that are there as a part of Indian construct, or the practices and cultures that we have, and ensure that this gets translated into our organization practices also, where we talk about a universal organization which says Sarva Hitaya Sarvajana Sukhaya. And it starts with leadership. Then say you take care of your profits, people, planet, and also serve the purpose. And what is the purpose? Purpose is global well-being. Purpose is reflection of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So Sarvajana Hitaya and Sarva Hitaya, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, becomes the root for what IKS, Indian Knowledge Systems, can give to the world. And let me borrow some of the thoughts that late Professor Balachandran, a fantastic researcher and a champion from the Western standards, also a celebrated professor and a wise man with a fantastic Indian roots from coming from the southern part of the country, Professor Balachandran. In one of the conversations, he said, we have to graduate using IKS, and only IKS can help us, Indian knowledge system can help us to graduate with global mindset and Indian roots, addressing global issues with Indian tissues, from best practices to graduate to next practices. Because from India, we have to move to Bharat, which is Bharata, Bhava, Raga, Tala, which create this symphony of life at a universal level. And I think that is how Indian knowledge systems can serve and help the world to become a better place.
Okay. Dr. Jain, in the last, I want you to, what are your suggestions to the government, and what is your advice to the public? And public means mainly the youth, the young generation, because Indian knowledge system, if you talk to any youth, they have lots of reservations. But what, as such an experienced person you are, and you have studied so much, what suggestion you would like to give to the government and your advice to the youth, especially the youth, about the Indian knowledge system?
Okay. Suggestion to the youth is to start respecting ourselves, start taking pride in what we are, and slightly be a little more curious to know what we are, to appreciate why we are good and why we are better. And we don't need to ape or carry the self-loathing or carry the low self-esteem. So that is for Aam Janta, because unless we take pride in ourselves, nobody will respect us. At more formal level, at institution and organization level, the prescription is simple. We have started the efforts. We need to strengthen the efforts in terms of making a concerted effort in a very structured, systematic manner with a vision to bring forth IKS. So we need to create more centers of excellences which dig deep into one aspect of IKS, whether it is legal studies, whether it is scientific studies, whether it is engineering, whether it is culture, whether it is architecture, management, and so on and so forth, economics, philosophy, and so on. So having a focus group, creating focus groups, funding them, and nurturing them with a vision to bring forth, say, with proper timelines and proper milestones identified, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years kind of deliverables to be given. So policy support, budgetary support, and also catalytic role that government should play in bringing together. And we don't need to, when we say developing IKS, we don't need to limit ourselves to only Indians. You can certainly bring forth create a global consortium of people who have deep dived into Indian knowledge systems, whether it is a German or an American or a Japanese or an Indian. Let them all come together and bring forth discover. So that has to be single most agenda in reviving it. For that, my suggestion and prescription would be to first and foremost revive the language. And as I said, the good news is that effort has started, but we need more power to it, more budgetary allocations to it, and more systematic approach or concerted approach to revive the language. Once we revive the language, we'll be able to decipher things. If we are able to decipher things, we'll be able to contextualize them. And if we are able to contextualize them, we'll be able to market them or sell them to the world.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Jain. So viewers, you have seen today what Dr. Jain has explained about the Indian knowledge system. But why we are depending on government? Why we are depending only on universities? As Dr. Jain mentioned very clearly, the education starts from the family. This is the responsibility of the civil society, me and you. If we will not give those values, if we will not explain our own children or grandchildren about the Indian knowledge system, how they are going to know about it? Dr. Jain mentioned about the pharmacy. The biggest pharmacy in India is the kitchen. How many mothers or grandmothers are teaching their children or grandchildren about the benefits of the food which they are providing, why they are providing? If they will start from there, I am sure that Indian knowledge system will give a very good deep-rooted knowledge to the young generation, and then we can become a wish guru. But for that, we have to start from our own side, not to depend only on the government. Government is trying, educators are trying, but we are our own educator. We have everything at our place. We still remember the childhood when the grandmother used to teach us, to tell us the story of Ramayana and Mahabharata. Please start it again into home. Cut the time of television and the WhatsApp or the mobile of the child. Give more time, dedicate more time with your own children. If you really want that your child can become someone big as the other countries, and other countries are taking advantage of our Indian knowledge system, why not we? Thank you very much. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News Global, V4 News, Caru News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, as well as shown live on Facebook and YouTube. I must give thanks to Dr. Jain for giving my straight answers to my straight questions in such a way that it has explained very clearly about the Indian knowledge system. And and in our media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m., our endeavor is to bring to you an everyday new topic. And tomorrow's our topic is Youth Conclave on Readying for Management as Career. And in our Gyan Ki Pathshala, and our chief guest is Professor Dr. Pramod Pathak, international corporate trainer, public speaker, blogger, and columnist, former professor and head of the management studies, IIT Dhanbad. And 14 youth will be joining and interacting with him and asking questions about the readying for management as career. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Dr. Rajkumar Jain. Really, it's a very, very, I must say, session, a good session. For me, it's a brain draining, but I'm sure the way you have given the replies, it's a really something which is still not only youth, the of our generation or the adults should also understand the importance of Indian knowledge system. Thank you very much. And thank you all the viewers for watching our show. Please keep watching and liking our show, subscribing the channels, whichever you are watching, so that we will be coming out with more and more such type of topics, positive topics for the benefit of the society and especially the youth. Thank you very much. Thank you.